And I'll just quick introduce the topic, I guess. All right, guys, for those of you that have been following our discussion on this wonderful, absolutely wonderful Shabbat that I've been having with my brother here and my family, my brother Joseph here has brought up a subject that I have been writing about. I have not published, but I have been writing about and I have been studying about for at least a year and a half right now. And this needs to be discussed in the groups. The other day on my page, if you guys are following my page, you would know about man, I forgot what I was going to say as far as I was concerned. Either way, if you're following my page, oh yeah, that's right. So I made a post and I asked everyone, I said, what is the largest Antichrist figure in history? And, just give me 1 second. Let me write this title out. Hold on.
You do what you got to do, man.
Man, I made such a grabby title. It's like must watch, must see, must bring your attention to this, which is legit, dude. That's exactly right. That's what I want to do. Must watch, must see. Okay. Must bring your. Here it is, right here, brother. So this subject is on Sabbatai Sebi, and what's his student's name, Joe?
Jacob Frank.
Jacob Frank. This is a topic that only a minority people know about, and our movement needs to be aware of. Sabbatai Sebi was the largest Antichrist figure in history, and here the reason I want to restart this discussion to be just this segment is because my brother here is going to provide a second witness. He's going to tether me to the facts because there's not a whole lot of information readily available. You have to piece it together. Now, he is in the history books, but as an afterthought, as a footnote. He is not clearly identified, and if you pursue the subject, you'll find all the information you need, but it's there in the shadows. Now, let me tell you something about this man. He had something like, was it 40% of the Jewish population, Joe, that were following him?
At least. I want to say the figure was, I know his original following had at least 200,000, and at the time, because he was from Turkey,
right,
in the 17th century, in the 1600s, that's a huge population. That's a huge portion of the population.
Now let me hold you right there. His followers, folks, when they realized they were deceived by his teachings, they walked outside the city gates and they slit their throats and their blood poured out onto the ground. Bodies of his followers, when they realized what they had done wrong, they killed themselves. Am I right about this, Joe?
Yeah, they did. En masse.
In mass. Now, you said 200,000 of the Jewish population. Right, now, can you nail this down in a time period for me? Because you could probably do this better than I can. At what point did his followers just start killing themselves in mass? Which, by the way, as far as my count, this man, where Hitler persecuted Jews and killed Jews in the Holocaust, this man had them as followers. That's the distinction here. Hitler did a lot of damage by persecuting and killing them, but here, this guy, he got into their souls and their hearts and their minds, and he had them pursuing him as a false Messiah. And didn't he readily claim to be the Messiah, Joe? I believe that's one of the points.
Yeah, he did. That was his big thing. He claimed himself to be the Messiah, and I know he was mentioned. There's a few writings that you can probably not find online because, like you said, he's so buried in the history books. But I know there's some stuff from some rabbi. I think it's Antelman. And you ever heard of him? Antelman, Rabbi Antelman.
No, I don't.
It was in the 18th century. but he references the Sabbateans, which
Right.
followers of Sabbatai Zevi. It was the late 18th century, I think, like probably around 1740s, 1750s, when he actually published something saying, we got to stop these guys. And because the Sabbateans actually intermarried with each other. It was kind of
Well,
like a tribe almost amongst themselves.
they believed in wife swapping, child sex.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
And their rituals that they performed were basically the embodiment of everything evil.
They literally Sabbatai Sebi taught that to bring Messiah, which was a net good in his Kabbalistic thought, that to bring a net good, you had to do a tremendous amount of evil. So he
Yes.
literally preached the inverse of the Torah. He literally preached this to his followers, saying that by doing evil actions, by going against the Torah, you're doing a terrible evil, which will force the earlier arrival of the Messiah, which ultimately in Kabbalistic thought would balance each other out. Am I correct in saying this, Joe?
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
in a very general sense. That was what he taught his followers, and that's what he believed.
Yeah. He kind of just basically had the inverse of what normal Jewish people had always practiced. He kind of came in and brought in the opposite, the Gnostic form.
Right. So a tremendous amount of Gnosticism is what he brought forward,
Yeah,
essentially.
absolutely. Like you said, all drawn from a Kabbalistic nature, and this random guy from the Ottoman Empire at the time just comes out of nowhere and declares himself the Messiah and gets 200,000 followers and starts the biggest messianic movement. Not messianic as in what me and you are, but messianic as in they think he's the Messiah.
And
Uh,
they believed in swapping wives. They believed
yeah,
in
yeah,
having
swapping
sex with
wives.
children.
Yeah. They performed acts of pedophilia, um, mutilation, just anything bad you can think of. But the thing is, uh, which is weird because that he eventually had to convert to Islam,
Right. He
but
was
his
forced to
followers
convert.
continued.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was forced to convert to Islam, but his followers continued his traditions in small amounts until um, Jacob Frank in Germany, I think it was at the time, brought in a kind of a new era of Sabbateanism, and he claimed to be the what's the word for it? Incarnate, the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi himself. Jacob Frank did. So he ended up getting a bunch of followers and kind of reenacted this stuff that happened in the Ottoman Empire, which is uh, his form of Sabbateanism, which is now referred to as Sabbatean Frankism or just simply Frankism. That's it's like sort of a mixture of Islamic Sufism,
Uh-huh.
and then you got the Kabbalah mixed in with it, and it's all based on like magic and alchemy and Gnosticism, and it's super evil. It still survives to this day. A
Well, they
lot of their
said they
traditions.
call them converso Jews.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Sabbateans, they call them converso Jews. You know who was a converso Jew?
do
So
tell.
many figures in history. One of them being the guy who quote unquote discovered America, Christopher Columbus. He was openly called a converso Jew. So Christopher Columbus was actually part of this sect that believed in a Kabbalistic school of thought to do
Yeah,
the evil of the Torah, to do wife swapping, sex with children. These are facts, folks. These are not. This is
yeah,
not an
yeah,
exaggeration, and it's critical to understand because when you understand this, now you're starting to tie it to Germany with the introduction of his student. He had a student
yeah,
called what's his
yeah.
name? Frank
Jacob Frank.
Jacob
So,
Frank. Now
so
Jake,
Jacob Frank was, I think, I want to say it was exactly 100 years later. I'll have
bump
to
your
fact
camera
check
up just a
that.
little bit. It's just your jaw on the feed. Sorry,
Oh, you're fine.
we want to see your face. There you go.
How's that?
He's married, women. Just so you know. All right, if that's a question. No, I'm just kidding. So you were saying? Did I screw up your
Oh no
train of
no no
thought?
no 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 no! You're fine. Jacob Frank. So he was born in. Okay, yep, 1726. So Jacob Frank.
And just as a
Uh,
point of reference, 1776 was the birth of the American Revolution. So
yeah
now you can tie this as a point of reference. Go ahead.
yeah absolutely. And he lived until 1791. So he claimed himself to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi, the guy we've been talking about. So Jacob Frank introduced his own take on this, called Frankism, like I was saying, and it's still just as evil. It's got all kinds of new Gnostic ideas in it. They still do the wife swapping, the pedophilia. Uh, they ended up with a huge number of followers. Um, his his whole thing was purification through transgression, which we all know what transgression means.
Redemption through sin. They believed in
Yeah.
doing the inverse of the Torah. That's what he taught his
Yeah.
followers. Go ahead.
So he ends up having uh, a bunch of followers, and this is in the 1700s when our first quote unquote secret societies are coming about. Your Freemasonry, the Bavarian Illuminated Seers, aka the Illuminati, and these guys all draw their rituals and their system of belief from the Kabbalah and Gnosticism and Frankism. And so what you have are these little secret societies popping up all over Europe that have drawn from Frankism and have continued to this day uh, in large circles of the very wealthy that ended up uh, continuing. They have no modesty. There's no rules of modesty. It's everything the opposite of what you think is good is what they do. That's how they bring about their Messiah.
Right, and then through the Middle Ages, we see the kings marrying other kings, even though they were like second and third cousins, even sometimes even to their brother and sisters, to maintain that power dynamic. Um, Now, actually, I might have screwed up my time periods here. Maybe that's not the case. I don't know. But either way, so Frank had a student. Yeah, I just ran with that. That's not correct. I'm sorry. But Frank had a student. What was that student's name? Do you remember? It was he was a member of the Bavarian group. He was the father of the Bavarian group. What is his name?
Oh, Adam Weishaupt?
Adam Weishaupt was Jacob Frank's student.
Yeah, he was. He was Jacob Frank's student. And the weird thing is, Weishaupt, genetically, he was an Ashkenazi Jew, but he was
Right.
raised by adopted Catholic parents. And what I think, this is just my opinion, there was in 1759 negotiations looking toward the conversion of the Frankists to Roman Catholicism that were being carried about.
And what that is in their movement is they were infiltrating the Catholic system. That's what that is. Go ahead.
So they were actually putting themselves into other churches, the Catholic churches. At the time, Protestantism wasn't as relevant as it is today, but they actually put themselves into Freemason lodges uh, and the Roman Catholic Church, especially. And so this guy, super evil, super cunning, I must say, and his student Adam Weishaupt is probably one of the most well-known Sabbatean Frankists we've ever heard of in history books.
Unreal, man. Absolutely unreal. So we have a direct link between the largest Antichrist figure in history, okay, which is different than Hitler. Hitler was just operating under the spirit of the Antichrist, but he didn't infect their hearts and minds. He just destroyed the bodies. You know what I mean? He went after the physical temples of the Jews. This man, he infiltrated their belief system and he taught them to do the inverse of the Torah, and almost nobody knows about it now because in Judaism is an institution. And in that institution, just like in Islam, you can have a fatwa, which means you declare somebody to be
Yeah.
persecuted and killed. In
Yeah.
Judaism, amongst the schools of rabbis, they all came to a solemn vow not to discuss this person, not to put him in history books, and to do everything they can to blot his name because it was such a shame to the Jews that survived him that he was even part of the same time period that they shared. But this is factual. We put this forward. 2 witnesses now. I had no idea Joseph knew about this kind of stuff. Which, brother, you are pretty cool, dude, man. Let me tell you something.
Thanks, man. You are too.
It takes a lot to get to that point of understanding. It takes a lot of study. It takes grit. Thank you for doing what you do. I want to wrap this up. I want to give you guys just that much to chew on. But right there, we laid it out. 3 individuals. Starts out with Sabbatai Sebi, who is the largest Antichrist figure Jews. Joseph saying 200,000 followers. I'm saying somewhere near that amount. I think I seen it as a percentage. 40,000 of the Jews in that period were following him. And when they discovered that he was forced to convert by a what was the guy that forced him to convert? Was he from Turkey?
Yeah, it was somebody in the Ottoman Empire, which their religion that was most dominant at the time was Islam.
Right, it was Islam. He was forced conversion, and then when he was forced to convert, the Jewish followers who were following him realized, this guy can't be the Messiah. He just converted to Islam, and so they started walking outside the city gates, slitting their throats and dying because they realized what they did. But he taught to do the inverse of the Torah, do wife swapping, do everything that's evil, everything that's against Yahweh. Which is, some people argue there isn't a. Well, I won't even get there. I'm rabbit trailing already. So then he had a student called Frank, who ends up in Germany. Frank has a student called Adam Weishaupt, and anybody that's been studying what's going on in the world as far as the Bavarians, the Bavarian Illuminati, know that Adam Weishaupt has a hand in it. And that individual right there is a powerful, dynamic figure throughout history through his followers. And his followers are currently who control and operate in the world right now. So literally the whole world is under the domination of the people who are under the influence of Sabbatai Sebi, who taught the inverse of the Torah, and they're the ones running the world. Doesn't that make sense? Would you agree with that statement, everything I just said, Joseph?
I absolutely agree, and that's why we need to find ourselves coming back to the Torah, live the way that Yahweh wants us to live, and accept Yeshua as Mashiach.
And so this is just one shred of this fact, of this truth, that we're bringing forward to the movement today. And I had no idea Joseph even knew about this guy. Joseph is a 0.0000001% of Messianics that know who this guy is. I'm the other half of that fraction of a percent. And here we are, brother. That's why, man, that's so cool, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I'm sorry the interview was all over the place.
Oh, no, it's fine, man. I love it that way.
It's good, dude. I want to have you back and a little more guarded of the discussion, especially just because of the nature of how you are, man. Your voice is desperately needed in this movement. Please come back anytime.
Oh, yeah. Anytime you need me, man, just holler at me.
Me, you, and Jeff, and some of my other interviewers, maybe Mark Purdue, we got to get back together and have a maybe 3-4 way conversation about all kinds of stuff.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, brother. Well, Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for spending so much
Shabbat
time
Shalom.
with me today. It was nice meeting you, my friend. Take care. Yahweh bless you.
You too.